Chapter 10. Sunday rolled around and my parents came home and they never said a word. Except that my dad was all up in the air because he needed his hammer and couldn't find it. I knew it was in the mine with Clarice, but I just gave him that wasn't me trick, and that seemed to work. I spent my entire Sunday thinking about Clarice and racking my brain about how this could have happened. What if Mathers had something to do with this? He did tell Clarice that he'd kill her, and he showed up at my front door right after I found Clarice. Every time the phone rang or the doorbell sounded, I went into an immediate panic breathing. Who was at the front door or on the phone, the police or Clarice's parents? It started to disturb me that Sarah, Chev, or Lori never showed up to the party, and I never heard anything about why they didn't. Maybe they came by when Rave and I were in the hills. Sunday ended and I laid in bed thinking most of the night about Monday morning. After a shower the next morning before school, I went into the kitchen to get something to eat. My mom looked long and hard at me and said, "Ellis, are you sick? You look like death warmed over." Okay, I thought, did she have to say something like that? If she only knew that I didn't look like death, I knew for sure what that looked like. "No, Mom, I'm just tired." "Are you sure?" she repeated. "Yes, I'm sure, Mom." I quickly made an excuse and headed off to school. "Ellis, wait a minute, please." "What, Mom? I'm gonna be late." "You had a message on the machine from Sarah." I perked up. "What did it say?" "Sarah said she hoped you felt better and that she'd see you at school." Hoped I felt better, I thought. Where would Sarah get an idea like that? "Ellis, who is Sarah?" "I don't think I've ever heard of her name before." "She's nobody, Mom, just a friend." "Okay, thanks, Mom, gotta go." I ran out the door to avoid any other questions. Now I was really puzzled. Where in the hell would she get the idea that I wasn't feeling good? I finally arrived at school and nervously walked around the quad area. It felt like everyone knew what had happened and was staring at me. I walked over by my locker and started to get my books out for my first class. My locker was violently pushed shut. "Paige, where the hell is Clarice? Everyone's been looking for her for a couple of days now. I know you know where she is." "Screw you, Mathers," I roared back. "Maybe you know where she is, and you're trying to hide something. Maybe you and your old man did something to her." "What would I be trying to hide, Paige? Besides, you know my dad is in prison." "How about the fact, Mathers, that you're always threatening to hurt Clarice, or even kill her? You probably learned that from your old man." Mathers snapped back. "How do you know that? You leave him out of this. We don't even speak to each other since the divorce. I know that because Clarice told me." "Paige, who have you told that to?" "No one yet, Mathers, so you better back the hell off or I will." Students around us started looking and listening, so I turned away. This is not the time or the place to talk about this, Mathers. Bo just stared, didn't say anything. That's a first. He just looked at me with a strange look in his eyes and turned and walked away. I turned and reopened my locker and started to grab my books. Chev walks up behind me. "Hey, Ellis, are you feeling better? You didn't answer any of my calls, or you didn't answer the door when I stopped by." "Chev, how do you know I wasn't feeling good?" "Ellis, I know because you left a note in my locker before I left school on Friday." "No, I didn't, Chev." "Yes, you did. I have the note right here in my jacket pocket, Ellis." "Let me see that note, Chev." Chev reaches in his pocket and grabs the note and hands it to me. I opened the note and immediately I said under my breath, "I didn't write this note." Chev responds, "What did you say, Ellis?" I said, "I didn't write this note." "Ellis, that's ridiculous. Why would someone else write a note that you weren't feeling good?" "Chev, I can't explain right now. I just need you to trust me on this one, please." "All right, no big deal, Ellis. I'll trust you." "I have to go to class, Chev. I'll talk to you later." I looked at the note and it said, "Can't make it Friday. I am sick. I need a remedy." I was starting to get the feeling that Clarice's death was no accident. But who would want to make it look like I killed her? What does remedy mean? The principal began his morning student announcement over the PA. Good morning, students. May I have your attention, please? I have a situation that the police department could use your help with. If anyone has any information to the whereabouts of Clarice Robinson, please report to my office. You may also make an anonymous phone call to the office. My heart sank. Again, I felt sick to my stomach knowing the truth, but could for sure not bring myself to put this in law enforcement's hands. I looked across the campus and Rave winked at me. He pushed his hand to the ground at waist level as if to say, "Relax, your secret is safe with me." I turned and could see Sarah coming toward me. "Oh, Ellis." Sarah had tears in her eyes. "Clarice is missing." She hugged me very hard and began to weep. I was trying not to be so hypocritical by grieving too much, but also not enough that I would expose myself. "Ellis, what do you think happened to her?" "Sarah, I have no idea," I replied with a shake in my voice. "Last I heard, she was coming to my party with you." "Yes, I know, Ellis, but we got your note about canceling because you weren't feeling well. But I didn't see Clarice before the party to tell her it wasn't happening. Did she show up at your house?" My eyes darted away from Sarah. I'm not sure. I slept most of the night. She may have knocked on my door, but I might have slept through it." "Ellis, I'm scared. What if something happened to her? You know how Bo is with her, Ellis. What if he did something to her?" "Well, Sarah, let's try to stay positive until we know different." "Okay, Ellis. Thank you. I feel a little better now. Can I see you tonight, Ellis?" Yeah. I'm not sure what time. I'll have to let you know." Lying to her like this felt awful, but I had to figure out what was going on. I also knew I had to sneak back up to that mine and take a better look at Clarice to see what the back of her head looked like. This was the key to her death. I had to see if there were any other wounds on her or anything that could tell me something about who did this. I knew sooner than later would be better in the essence of time, so I planned to go tonight. Through all 6 of my classes, everyone was talking about Clarice and their theories of how Mathers did her in. Still, I had a hard time believing that he could be so cold, even for him. But he didn't like me at all, so it kind of made sense to me. Before I left school, I told Sarah that I would pick her up at her house at about 8:30. That evening, I gathered what I thought I needed. I grabbed a flashlight, black ski mask to put over my head while I was sneaking around up there in the mines. I also grabbed my dad's leather dress gloves to put on my hands while I moved Clarice around. It was a particularly cold night, and the fog started to set in early. I jumped in the car and headed for the Quicksilver Mines area, knowing this was not a smart idea to return to the scene of the crime, or in this case, where I hid the body. But I knew I had to if there was any chance of exonerating myself. As I turned onto the dirt road to the mines, I began to flash back on Clarice's last night. I started thinking about the possibilities and put myself in a bit of a trance. Suddenly, I slammed on the brakes to stop short of hitting the entrance gate. With only a few feet of visibility, I was unable to completely stop and blasted the gate open with a fairly loud crash. I immediately jumped out and looked at the front of the car. Big dent in the bumper. "Oh, great, my dad's gonna kill me." I jumped back in the car and drove through enough to close the gate behind me. I grabbed the lock to make it look like the gate was secured and noticed that the padlock was opened, as if it had been opened by a key. Strange, I thought, but I quickly justified that by thinking maybe someone just forgot to lock it. I felt what seemed to be a couple of raindrops on my forehead. I wasn't sure if it was condensation from the fog or it was actually beginning to rain. I quickly jumped in and put the car in drive. As I hedged forward toward the 2-lane hill climb to the mines, it began to come down harder, soaking my windshield and the surrounding ground. Great rain, I thought. As I climbed the hill, traction became more and more of an issue, but I was still making progress toward the mine, so I kept going. Finally, I arrived at the first couple of mines, but they all looked the same. I continued to drive, looking back and forth for the mine that was my hiding place, and noticed off to the upper left a flickering light up the hill by one of the mines. Not wanting to take any chances, I turned off my headlights and pulled the car over. I looked harder at the light, attempting to focus on what might be causing the light, and suddenly it was gone. I squinted, trying to focus more, and I could have sworn that I saw the silhouette figure walking away from the light. I quickly dismissed that, either out of fear or just because I wasn't sure what I saw. I think I wanted to believe that my eyes were playing tricks on me. I started walking up the hill, but it was slippery, as the dirt was starting to turn into a thin layer of slippery mud. I sidestepped a bit to get into the grassy part of the path to gain a little bit of traction, and realized I had left my supplies in the car. I was running out of time because I had to meet Sarah, so I jogged back to the car, slipping and sliding the entire way. I got to the car, opened the door, and put my head in, grabbing a flashlight and gloves. I left the mask. It was too dark for anyone to see me, even if they had a chance. I started up the hill quickly, looking for my mine. Step by step, I trudged up the hill. As I walked, I started to smell something. I wasn't quite sure what it was. Definitely a smell I've never come across. I took a step and heard a sizzling sound by my feet. I jumped as the sudden sound scared me. I stopped and looked down at the ground. I bent over and put my hand by the pile of something. It was hot. I looked closer. Someone had stamped out a campfire. That's what that light was. I crouched down and looked in all the directions. My heart was pounding. My shoe was still sizzling from the coals, turning the rain into steam. I looked to my left, and the mine next to me somehow looked familiar. I took out my flashlight and shined it on the entrance. As I walked closer, I noticed that 2 or 3 boards were missing from the entrance. They were lying on the ground, and that funky, nasty smell became much stronger. I walked to the entrance and leaned in, shining my light from side to side. As I panned the left wall, I caught a glimpse of a person sitting against the wall. I jumped and hit my head on the entrance board above my head. The impact knocked me right to the ground. I immediately scrambled on my hands and knees, trying to get away. I finally got to my feet and scampered toward my car. I could hear my breath as I ran with a frightened wheeze, quickly glancing behind me to see if anyone was chasing me. After the third look, I slowed a bit and realized no one was chasing me. I turned and stopped. As scared as I was, I yelled out, "Who's there? I saw you!" There was no answer. I yelled again. There was still no answer. As much as I didn't want to know, I had to go back, because I dropped my gloves and the flashlight. Now I was completely frightened to go back to the mine entrance because I had dropped my flashlight and it was pitch black, so anyone could jump out on me. I inched to the opening, not sure what was in store for me. I said quietly, "I'll kick your ass if you try something when I try to get my stuff." I moved a little closer and put my hand by the entrance while on one knee, always looking into the dark opening in case I had to run. I slowly picked up my flashlight, and then as quickly as I could, I flashed the light by the entrance and jumped back. The smell was really strong and nauseating. I shined my light to the left, and again my heart jumped. There was a person against the wall. It was Clarice. Once I realized it was her, I became sick to my stomach because she was sitting propped up against the wall. I knew now there was much more to this than I know. What kind of sicko would be up here with Clarice? Right away I thought about Rave. I turned and looked around, and I didn't see anyone. I walked over and knelt by Clarice. I felt like I wanted to cry, but I also was pissed that someone was up here setting me up. I still wasn't sure, but Rave helping me the way he did, it didn't seem right to me. I grabbed my gloves and put them on. I put my hands behind Clarice's head and started to move her so I could get a look at the back of her head. Clarice was very stiff, and she cracked and creaked when I moved her, which just grossed me out. I wanted to pinch my nose closed because the smell was awful, but I had already put my hands on her and I didn't want to touch my face. I looked at her head and the round impact mark in the back of her head. I moved her hair around so I could see the impact mark. I remembered the hammer that Rave put in the mine, so I searched with the flashlight and finally found it in the dirt. I leaned Clarice on the wall and crawled over to get the hammer. I brought it over to where Clarice was and turned her so I could see the back of her head. I matched the round head of the hammer to the mark on her head, and it seemed like a fit, but I was no expert. Unbelievable, I thought. Then I thought, inconceivable. How could Rave even do something like this? I couldn't get my mind off Rave because he's the only one that knows what happened, and he told me where to hide her. I looked at my watch, 7:45. Hell! I gotta go meet Sarah by 8:30. I leaned Clarice up as close as I could remember how she was, and I grabbed my flashlight. I felt nervous because I couldn't put the boards back across the front of the mine because whoever this was would know I was here. I threw the hammer back in the dirt and made my way out of the mine. I flashed a light on the entrance and knew this was trouble because anyone could get in here and find her. I didn't have a choice though. I left things the way they were. I had to if I had any chance of finding out for sure who the killer was. I walked back to the car and drove down the hill to the gate. I got out and tried to open the gate, but the lock was secured. Shit! I got in the car remembering what Rave had shown me and slowly put the bumper on the gate and pushed forward until the gate's lock snapped. The gate pushed open and I drove through. I started feeling uneasy about things, so I quickly fixed the gate to look locked and got the hell out of there. Being short on time, I drove straight to Sarah's house to pick her up. I was a mess with muddy clothes and shoes. I put the gloves and flashlight up under my seat so Sarah wouldn't see them. As I drove to Sarah's, I was concocting a story that I had a flat tire and that I needed to change it, and that's why I was such a mess. As I pulled up to Sarah's, I could see that she was out front, or at least I thought it was her. After my groping debacle, I wasn't taking any chances on views from behind. I parked a car on the other side of the street and made my way over to the driveway. She was so involved in what she was doing that I startled her. "Hey there," I announced. Sarah jumped. "Oh my God, you scared the heck out of me." "Sorry about that, Sarah," I responded. Sarah turned off the hose that she was using to wash the mud off of her shoes. "Wow! What happened to you?" Sarah was a bigger mess than I was. She had mud on her shoes and her pants, and the car had mud in the wheel well and on the outside of the fenders. Sarah looked down at the ground. "Oh, Ellis, it's the dumbest thing. I had a flat tire and I pulled over to check it out, but I pulled into a really muddy area and the car was stuck. Ellis, I hope you're not mad, but Bo Mathers was driving by and he helped me put the spare tire on." "Sarah, he just happened to be driving by?" "Well, I saw him at 7-Eleven when I stopped there, and then he pulled over when he noticed that I was on the side of the road." "Well, at least you're safe, Sarah." I didn't want her to think that I was some secure jackass or anything, so I acted cool, even though I was steaming inside. "So you're not mad, Ellis?" "No, I guess I'm okay with it." "What happened to you, Ellis? You're quite a mess yourself." "Well, it seems like we both had some bad luck, as I had a flat tire too. It felt like a lie when I said it, so I changed the subject quickly. I've never really been a very good liar, so I think the avoidance tactic is probably the best approach. "Sarah, what would you like to do tonight?" Before I could get an answer, Sarah's dad pulled up in the driveway in his patrol car. We both turned and looked at the car. Sarah's dad got out. "Hey, kids, what's going on?" Her dad's eyebrows sunk down. "What a mess," he said. I didn't respond. He makes me nervous. Sarah offered the typical young person response by saying, "Nothing, Daddy." Sarah's dad sharpened his tone. "What do you mean, nothing?" "Dad, I had a flat tire, and it got a little messy." "Is everyone okay, Sarah?" "Yes, Dad," Sarah responded. "Hey, has either of you two kids heard anything about the missing girl, Clarice Robinson?" "No, I haven't heard anything," Sarah responded. I didn't say a word. I just swallowed real hard and tried to avoid any eye contact with her dad. "Have you heard anything, Daddy?" "Well, I guess someone is providing some information about her last whereabouts before she disappeared, but the information is anonymous, so we're not sure if the source is credible. That's all I know at this time, but I think I'll be handling this case, so I'll know more as this thing unfolds. My heart sank because somehow I knew the caller was saying she was with me. I'm so screwed. Here I am talking to the cop that's going to handle the case, and I can't tell him she was with me. But soon he will know that I didn't tell him, what my anonymous manipulator will soon unveil. Again, I felt sick. What would Sarah think if she knew about Clarice? Would she believe me? Sarah's dad will think it was me for sure because I hid information from him. Mr. Ames gave me the once-over like he had some sort of suspicion. All right, you two, get cleaned up and make sure you're safe out there tonight. Thank you, and good night, sir. I put on my best Eddie Haskell impression. As Sarah's dad went into the house, Sarah reached over and grabbed my hands. Ellis, I wish I knew something about what happened to Clarice. The not knowing anything is really hard to deal with. I feel bad for her, Ellis, because she's having such a hard time with Bo. I really think he had something to do with her disappearing, Ellis. I don't know, Sarah. Do you think Mathers could be a killer? Sarah's expression quickly darkened with tears starting to well in her eyes. You think she's dead? Quickly I backpedaled. No, I'm sure she's fine. Hey, let's not talk about this. We have to be positive. Let's not think about something like that until we have to, even though that thought occupied my every waking moment. Sarah, did you want to go into the house and change your clothes? We can go somewhere. Ellis, are your parents home? No, they're out for the evening. Oh, good, Ellis. Let's go there. Reluctantly, I said yes. Sarah said, I'll change at your house. Just give me a minute and I'll grab some clothes. As we drove to my house, my mind swirled with everything that was happening. I could feel the tapestry of untruths tightening the noose on my neck. I knew I was short on time and had to get more aggressive with my pursuit of the truth if I had any chance of saving myself. Sarah and I arrived at my house. Before I could even fully get the door open, Sarah gently pushed past me and said, I need a shower. I am too dirty. Ellis, can you get me a towel? Sure, I guess so. I went to the hall closet and took a towel out for her. I knocked on the bathroom door. Sarah, your towel's on the floor outside the door. Thank you, sweetheart, Sarah responded. Sweetheart? I smiled and felt a flutter in my chest. I felt a bit tired, so I went and laid down on my bed and I tried to quiet my mind a bit. I waited for about 10 minutes, drifting in and out of a light sleep, and finally Sarah's shower water turned off. I announced, I'm in my room, sweetheart. Sarah did not answer back. Sweetheart? Sarah did not answer my call. Nervously, I started to get up and make my way toward the bathroom door. Hi there. Sarah was at the door wearing my dad's robe. Her hair was still glistening from the shower and the robe was hanging open, exposing her bare body. Ellis, I've missed you since the last time we had a chance to be together. Sarah pushed me back until I was on the bed and was removing my shirt up over my head. Sarah climbed on top of me and aggressively started pulling at my belt buckle. I undid my pants and pulled them down. Sarah leaned over and started kissing my face and neck, breathing hard. I took in every second because I couldn't help but to think this may be the last time for me to make love to her. The two of us were in a full sweat of passion, and finally I was approaching that climactic conclusion when you belt out, I love you. I so wanted to tell her that I loved her. I didn't want to take any chances that she wouldn't know how I really felt about her. As I reached climax and I tried to get the words out, but it just came out as more of a grunting sound. Sarah said, What did you say, baby? I felt silly now. Oh, I didn't say anything, Sarah. I thought in my head, stupid, just tell her. But the moment was gone, so I let it go. We laid in each other's arms for a while, and then I had to go to the bathroom. Sarah, I'll be right back. After I was done, I returned to my bedroom and the door was mostly closed except for a crack. I peeked through the door into my room and I could see Sarah lying naked on top of the covers. I slowly opened the door as I lowered my voice. Ellis, is that you? I sounded just like my dad. Sarah, so startled, scrambled to get under the blankets. I burst open the door, hysterically laughing. You thought that was my dad coming in. I laughed even harder. That's not funny, Bo. Immediately, the laughter stopped. What did you say, Sarah? Sarah's face got beet red. Ellis, that's not what I meant to say. Well, just what in the hell did you mean to say, Sarah? What's going on with you and Bo? Are you cheating on me with him? No, Ellis, you're reading way too much into this. Plus, I told you before, he has no interest in me. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I didn't mean to say that. It was an accident, Ellis. Great. Bo having no desire for you somehow doesn't make me feel any better about this, Sarah. Mathers told me he was going to hit on you just to get to me because he doesn't like me. Sarah looked at me in disbelief. You're not telling the truth, Ellis. He wouldn't do that just to get back at you. Sarah, you're acting like you cared whether he cares about you or not. I think I'd better go, Ellis. Wait a minute, Sarah. I don't want you to go. I think I need to, Ellis. Take me home, please. Sarah, please don't go. Don't leave mad. I'm not mad, Ellis, just hurt. I'm thinking in my head, hurt? What the hell for? You're the one that said his name instead of mine. This is bullshit. I'm starting to get mad. Fine, I'll take you home. Sarah and I jumped in the car and didn't say a word all the way back to her house. I pulled in her driveway and she opened the door before I could even stop the car. Sarah slammed the door and marched right inside of her house. I sat for a minute, thought, what the hell just happened? She calls me a different name and I'm in trouble? I backed out of the driveway and headed for home. I parked and went inside and lay on the couch trying to calm down a bit. It was about 10:45 p.m., and I expected my parents would be home any time.